From Los Angeles, California, this is the Adult Swim Podcast, Rick and Morty Companion Edition. I'm Matt Harrigan. We're talking about Rick and Morty number 402, The Old Man in the Seat. If you haven't watched it yet, you might want to watch it first. We're talking with some folks who made this episode, including Jacob Hare, who directed it, and Michael Waldron, who wrote it. We'll also hear from art director James McDermott, character designer Carrie Kilpella, background lead Robbie Irwin, background designer Tommy Scott, and music composer Ryan Elder. Up first, director Jacob Hare, Rick and Morty number 402, The Old Man in the Seat. Here we go.
My name's Jacob Hare, and I'm an animation director on season 4 and 5 of Rick and Morty.
So tell me about, first of all, your background. How'd you get here? What led you here?
I went to school in Savannah, Georgia for storyboard and comic book art.
SCAD,
yep. And then I moved out here to work on low-budget indie horror movies and makeup effects back when there was still a DVD market, and you could, kind of survive doing that stuff.
What ones can we know what ones?
I worked on the 2001 Maniacs movies. Those were some of the first ones that I did. A lot of straight-to-DVD stuff in the early 2000s. Starship Troopers 3.
Right on.
Yeah, and then I discovered that I should have probably started testing for animation a lot earlier. There was a lot of struggling and freelancing before I found out, that you can take a test and get hired to animation. So
Yeah.
Since 2006, I've been working in animation. Started as a storyboard artist, then assistant directing, and then this is the second show that I've directed on.
What are some of the other shows that you've worked on?
Started at King of the Hill with Wes Archer.
Started at King of the Hill. That's a pretty good start.
Yeah. Happened to have a roommate that was working on the show, and he got me a test, and that was my first time working with Wes Archer, who I work with here now.
Mm-hmm.
And started as a board artist, went to an AD there, and then ever since then, it's just been jumping shows. I worked on American Dad, Family Guy, a Fox show called Border Town.
The great Mark Henteman.
Yeah,
I do, yeah. Old friends.
And then on to Disney for a couple of years before coming here.
So you're here now. This is your first season directing.
Of Rick and Morty, yeah.
Of Rick and Morty.
I directed on Border Town previously, yeah.
What a great episode.
Yes, I was ecstatic because I am very public restroom phobic. It's something that I've created personal art about and I'm passionate about.
Yeah.
So when I got the script, I was like, wait, did they direct this at me? I was thrilled. And it was interesting because the original script, the first draft that I got, had a lot of information in it that wasn't necessarily visual. It was just sort of like giving you the background of why Rick is doing the things he's doing and what's going on in his head, just which was really cool because usually in animation you just get a script that kind of just beat for beat gives you what you're going to deliver on screen. And it was nice that there was some psyche in there.
There's an emotional paragraph explaining in the script I saw explaining why he has this personal big dick Rick shitter and the emotional thing behind his personality that would drive him to such a thing. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, and a lot going into his subterranean sewage area, which was originally going to be a lot very pristine, no water, no feces or anything. The idea was that we were seeing a different side of Rick, kind of like a more less of a drunk slapping stuff together in the garage type tech and more of a Elon Musk side, I think is exactly what the script said. So it was cool, and I tried to keep that in mind with his acting and everything else that you were going to put on screen. Also, the planet of Omega, Omega, it was originally called Omega 2, actually. The show has changed a lot, so I'm not sure if they still are calling it Omega 2. I think so. I think they are. But the idea that this was a wonderful sort of like oasis, solitude for Rick, it's different from imagery that we've seen in Rick and Morty. It's usually hostile, fast, and furious, and being able to bring Rick into this sort of like peaceful, serene environment was new, I feel like, for the show, even for my first time working on it. So
it's striking. The backgrounds are amazing.
Yeah, the design department here did just fucking incredible work.
Yeah.
The show has evolved a lot from the first draft that I worked on to where it came a long distance, and it was funny because the first time I actually interacted with Dan and Justin was when I went to get notes on the first pass. We did a thumbnail pass, and then I was going to meet with them in editing, and I hadn't really worked with them hands-on much. And they were in the middle of talking about the butthole sequence. They were just concocting that, and my first experience working with them was them sort of talking about the trials of Buddhist mysticism or something inside Rick's ass, which became the heaven sequence now that you see when Giant Rick sits down on Tony.
Right. So their conversation with you in the background evolved into that heaven sequence.
Yeah, originally I don't believe Rick sat on Tony in the first draft. He just kind of whisked Tony away to this hallucinatory dream sequence, which was drastically different from the heaven sequence that they're putting in there now. The first time they were just mid deep talking about this butthole, and Wes said to me, "You got a good dose of what it's like working with those guys today." So it was really cool. It's a big, dense episode too.
Yeah.
You know, it has the stuff with the app, Gluty. You've
Yeah.
got the Jerry and Morty stuff on board the ship. And I love episodes of this show like that are jam packed.
Jam packed with a solid B story.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. The
Yeah.
Gluty stuff is so funny.
Yeah,
He's a great character, and his little team is so funny.
It was funny because the first week I got here, Gluty was like a four-legged little troll creature, and then the design evolved, and then the voice evolved, and it was really cool to see him and now he's just such an awesome character. He went
Yeah.
through so many stages.
Let's talk about the broken twig scene.
Like that.
Scene seems incredibly complicated with regard to all of the direction in it. Was
Yeah.
it?
Absolutely. This long, sort of quiet detective work sequence, which I actually love. They referenced the Batman Arkham games. The writers did in the script. That was my, when we launched the show, that was the reference I was given, which I've played those games, and I love Batman doing high-tech detective work.
Quietly.
Yeah. Specifically with these things that sort of extrapolate hologram sequences to kind of inform you of what went on at a crime scene or something like that. And so, yeah, the device that he used, the manner in which all those hologram creatures were cycled through to see if their impact force was what stepped on the twig, all of that, figuring that out was very directed at animators. And it's cool that on this show they let you run wild with it. They let you take a stab at it and really put your stamp on it.
A lot of scenes in this season, I think, no dialogue.
Mm-hmm.
And that puts a tremendous amount of pressure on you.
Yep. It's really cool. I mean, animators dream of doing this type of stuff. It's very visual. It's not just talking heads. And yeah, the detective work sequence in that one, up to the alien moose that turns out to be some sort of digital key that opens his personal
rotates
outfit.
his
It's
antler.
so cool, and being able to just imagine like how these little gadgets work and stuff is fun. It really is.
How do those ingredients that maybe aren't in the script get into the show? Something like that, which I didn't see in the script.
Right. Well, sometimes in the script it literally says animators go nuts with this, or reference the Batman games, but have at it. Just and the board artists will take a stab at it, and we'll work back and forth. Or sometimes they just have a singular image in their brain. Sometimes in the launch meeting, the writers will give us a very specific direction to go with that stuff. But no, some of it's just figuring it out on paper, trial and error too. We did a couple of passes on that twig sequence before we landed on what we have in there now.
People who work on the show seem happy to go above and beyond what's required of them.
Absolutely. Yeah, and each iteration of the script just keeps getting funnier each time a development occurs.
Do you get each iteration of it, and then you have to adjust?
Yeah, sometimes it happens as a moving target while we're right in the middle of production, and some of this stuff is happening in post once it comes back in color. The show is always evolving until it's done.
Tell me about that Vermaburger scene. Did that change much from the original script?
Yeah, I think everything got a little bit compressed for time. I think the first thematic pass we did at this was way over broadcast length. So that happens, and yeah, but the sequence of Rick coming in and threatening his children, I think, was always in there. That was always how those beats went.
This robot battle, highlight of the episode, no?
Yes. That was a sequence I boarded myself. I usually will do that as a director. You split the show up into assignments for each board artist, and you might take a chunk of it for yourself. And that was one of the first things I drew working on this show. There was a previous version that was more Rick base jumping in and just slaughtering all the reptilians and then rescuing the robot. It changed somewhere halfway through, I think at Animatic, where Justin came up with this idea that no, he's hunting down the microchips of the robot's brain that were scattered everywhere. And so I got to still use some of the violent kills that we had concocted before, but it rearranged a little bit into this new sequence with him chasing down microchips on the deck of this crazy burning alien robot ship. Really, again, that's the same thing. They will hand that to you and go, hey, artists, have at it. Pickle Rick-esque violence, chasing down microchips. There was no real script for that. It was more just pitched verbally by Justin.
Tell me about that thing that grows out of the table.
It's sort of like a butthole type formation that Rick grows. I think that actually is something that Wes Archer did in post after I had worked on the show. To me, I think it's the worst thing that you could do to a shy pooper is humiliate them with some horrible display of like, sci-fi feces like that. It was disturbing when I saw it. But yeah, a giant butthole grows out of the table, shoots, I think fills the room with gas, and then a shit hand flips him the bird.
That's fantastic.
It is.
So this is a departure from King of the Hill for you.
Yeah, four guys stiffly standing in an alleyway to alien reptile robot slaughter on a spaceship. It's insane.
My name's James McDermott, and I'm the art director on season 4 for Rick and Morty.
Gluty the intern.
Yep.
Is he based on anything?
No. It was originally called Appadoodle. was the original name. Was the original name. I had a design for it that they were like set on, and then they changed it to Gluty. We had designed the main high intern character, and he needed a couple minions around that we were doing as just ancillary characters. And then through that actually became Gluty, as by chance, by mistake. And so when Justin saw the minion characters, he was like, "Oh my God, no, this is Gluty." So that got changed on the spot. Kind of not too late in the game, but it was still early enough that board artists had time to add it to the mix.
Do happy accidents happen a lot?
Sure.
And you keep them. Can you think of any examples?
I mean, a lot of times, part of the magic for me in watching it unfold is when we can see like 3 different people's takes on the same character, and Justin will come in and he'll be like, "Oh, I like the head of this one, the body of this one, the hands of this one," and then it's this Frankenstein character, and somehow he sees through all of it. And it's like a perfect character, it's like that easily seems merchandisable and it's a toy. And, it's like it has all those great aspects. And obviously we don't care about that for now because we're trying to make the episode.
Jacob Hare, director, was talking about the evolution of the Vermaburger scene.
Yeah. That whole search for the chip. Like,
yeah.
Because the robot warrior and the lizard warrior bit came in late. That was a late addition, and here you're setting like this massive epic battle just to find a freaking microchip
right
within a freaking lizard, and like all the work that it took to do that just to find this one tiny object. I felt like that was part of their joke on us.
So visiting Rick's underground world feels like a significant advancement in this show.
Yeah, Rick's lab, at the inner sanctum there below his toilet. was supposed to feel like this is new Rick tech we hadn't seen before.
Yeah.
Close to godliness. It was supposed to be like, this is a thing that he's been working on in the background that we don't know about. But it's supposed to feel like a modern Marvel and just huge in scale and size, but also, like a lot of the things that Rick designs or puts together and device wise feels clunky and not necessarily like it serves its function. It doesn't necessarily need to look cool. But this was a space that's like, no, this is Rick's special place, so it had to be close to godliness in a way that felt sort of zen and so we actually referenced a lot of zen gardens and waterfalls and that kind of thing to kind of help guide us a little bit into where we came to the final design of that.
Here's Carrie Kilpella. She's a character designer. What's your specialty?
I personally like the clothing, like costuming for aliens and just like specific instances, like within the plot. All of us draw all of the aliens, all the humans. We do all the parts, but my favorite part is coming up with the outfits that the characters are wearing.
Alien outfits.
Yeah.
What's your inspiration for those?
Just a lot of movies, a lot of sci-fi, or not even just sci-fi, like all movies, all fashion, like couture outfits.
Not everybody would think that fashion and couture would mix with primetime animation.
Yeah, with Rick and Morty. Yeah.
Tell me what you did on this episode, The Old Man in the Seat.
I designed Gluty, the one that's Taika Waititi.
Yeah, what a great voice.
Yeah, right.
But what a great character. Did that not start out as Gluty?
Oh, it started out as it had a different name. I forget what it was. We're like Appalachian or something like that. And they were the two interns, and they were all supposed to look the same. And they had a very like Justin Roiland aesthetic to it, where it was just like wonky eyes, like two eyes, and like a big bulbous head. And it was the first thing I designed on the show, and I just went in a completely different direction. I kind of tried to match it to like the Overlord character, and they ended up liking it and going with it. And
wow,
two different intern characters. Yeah.
You designed the two interns also.
Yes. The Taika Waititi Gluty toy was the Comic-Con exclusive toy this year.
Oh, how did that happen already?
I have no idea. There's a bunch of Funkos and like different toys that have already come out for it before the show even premiered, and they kind of give away some spoilers.
Yeah. So that's probably, you got to be proud of that, right?
Yeah. It was great. It was the first character that I've designed anywhere that ended up in a toy, and it was the first toy of the season, so it was pretty cool.
Do you have a toy?
Yeah, I do.
You do?
Yeah, a few of us do in the office.
That's exciting. Is that the goal of the character designer?
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely a plus.
Yeah.
I like to have like a physical copy of what I have done, but I don't know. It's definitely not why I got into character design. Is to have toys. It's because I like drawing.
So, what do you think makes something like Gluty be turned into a product? Like, what is the secret? Why do some things get made and some things don't?
Yeah, I have no idea. Justin Roiland's really good at figuring that stuff out, and I have like some ideas for other characters that should be turned into things like pillows or like Snapchat filters or like other like marketing things. But for some reason, I just can't figure out like what makes a toy great, and I think that like he has a really good eye for that, and I don't know. They're like funny characters within the show, and so he makes good picks based on like voices and just like how they represent themselves in the episode. And I feel like the best toys are the characters that people relate to the most or think are the cutest.
Robbie Irwin.
Yeah.
Tell me your title. What's your background? What's your story here?
Background lead on the fourth season.
Background.
Co-lead. Yep.
Co-lead.
Yep.
Background.
Design.
Yep. Walk us through your history here with Rick and Morty.
Started off in the third season, second episode. From there, all through the third season, did background design, background cleanup. The first background I did for the third season was actually the concerto background for the tag of episode 3.
You did the backgrounds.
Yeah.
Was that your first task here at the show?
Yeah, it was my first task. Initially, it was supposed to be design and cleanup, and then from there, it just kind of blossomed into this fourth season. It came into like background lead, which I sit and divvy up all the assignments for an episode when we get the boards in from the board artist, and then supervise on tracking each background from each artist per episode. I got to design like the prime high intern.
The high intern.
Yeah, the high interns or the interns major his main chair or his throne room.
Yeah.
So I got to design all of that.
What is that? Is that based on something, or is it just your own?
Just my own
coming out
drawings.
of your head.
Yeah. I mean, we looked at Star Wars and how that throne room was kind of set up, but we really wanted something to feel grandiose in scale, but also kind of a lot different from anything from Star Wars or any of that vein. So that one was a lot of fun, but some of it gets cut off in the actual final animation. It's like we had designed this whole hub above him, and the idea being that he had all this information streaming from his chair up to this hub above him, and it kind of looks like an arachnid kind of shape robotic device above him, but it's just one of the most beautiful. I mean, I designed it, so I shouldn't say that, but it's
You can be proud of it.
I was just really proud of how it looked overall, and the whole sequence in that shot is beautiful to look at. And that episode itself has one of the funniest sequences in it, I think, this season. For me, it's one of the funniest sequences.
What sequence?
It's the sequence where near the end where we're inside the church and Summer's getting married, and Beth goes to stop her, and so we have numerous people busting into the church trying to keep that from happening, and some of the lines and hearing Justin's vocals with the characters, every time it just makes me laugh out loud.
Tommy Scott is also a background artist. Tell me what you do here.
I am a background designer officially, though I also provide concept art for set backgrounds. So it usually begins with the script, and I provide concepts for the various worlds, both alien and sci-fi, that they might be visiting during their travels. And those concepts, when approved, and they're usually rough drawings or renderings, they're given to the storyboard artist to design the scenes based on, and they'll move the camera throughout those concepts to figure out how they want to frame the scene. The designs are more loose in that stage, but when I get those storyboards back, we do the finished, tightly drawn background designs based on each individual storyboard frame.
So you started working on the show, season 3.
Yes.
What stands out in this first batch of 5 that's coming through to you?
I guess over-the-topness could be a way of putting it, especially when you see the action going on screen. You know how you say with shows like, oh, it's even better than the last season, it's more crazy? This is literally the case with this season. Like, it will be unbelievably memorable. I did provide a few of the designs for like the fantasy toilet world that Rick was a part of, but it was more Robbie doing the main concepts and ideas behind that. Me, Michelle, Chris, and then the other designers, we took that and fleshed it out. Certain areas look a little different than others. Like, I believe Michelle designed the grass to look like alien wheat fields as Rick walks through it beautifully. I was designing more of the toilet-like area and what plants might be in there, and how the giant leaves from the redwood-looking forest behind them would look. I think I had more of a role in playing in how the sky would look. I wanted to give it this weird alien cosmos look that was both beautiful and strange at the same time. I have a weird thing where I like to look at well, it's not really weird. It's usually what I actually recommend other artists. I just like to look at the real world. I might type into Google search images, Cosmos or NASA images that the Hubble Space Telescope might have taken. Sometimes I might even do randomized artwork on the screen, which means I might just play around almost like a Pollock painting and just see what comes of it and work from that. to take randomness and build from it. Sometimes I do have a clear goal and I just kind of know what I want. It does vary from scene to scene based on what it is.
I spoke again with Ryan Elder, who composes the music from this episode.
The toilet episode was a little hard to nail down, I would say, in terms of music. This was an episode where, in every sense of the word, Rick is a villain in this episode. You know, he's obsessed with using his own toilet and having it to himself, and he's basically torturing another person to make sure they don't use his toilet. So there was sort of for me, it was tricky to figure out what the perspective was. You know, it's so obvious Rick's the bad guy, but he's also sort of the main character of the show. So I can't make him a villain because we want what Rick wants. You know, we at the end of the day, we want Rick to be happy. So, you know, that means that Dan and I talked about this a lot and came to the conclusion that it should not come from a place of villainy, but of determination. So I created a cue while Rick's sort of figuring out what's going on, that someone else has started using his toilet. It's a little menacing, but mainly it's just determined. It's determined. And I go to that cue several times as he's on this journey of trying to figure out who used his toilet. And then the other thing that I really love from this episode, it's one of my favorite pieces of music I've written for Rick and Morty, is the music at the very end of the episode. I love being able to tell this story that this guy actually meant something to Rick, and the sort of reveal of the fact that this guy who is using his toilet really did actually mean something to Rick, and he feels bad that the guy died. And so getting to sort of emotionally tell that story along with the visuals and everything that's happening with the multiple Rick holograms and stuff really was inspiring. And I came up with a piece of music that I was really, really proud of and happy with.
So music is critically important to the show. How would you explain its role?
Yeah, I mean, I always think of my job is to support the story in a way that is, I'm happy if people don't notice it, because that means I'm doing my job, you know? It means that they're engrossed in the story. They're just buying into what's happening, and the music is helping tell that story. But occasionally, like this music at the end of Toilet, I get to sort of take center stage and show more, really tell the story with the music in a way that makes the music more obvious to the viewer, hopefully. So yeah, I mean, I think that music is obviously super duper important. If you watched it without music, it would have you might not even notice it didn't have music, but something would feel off, right? It's all part and parcel of telling the story.
My name is Michael Waldron. I was a producer on season 4 of Rick and Morty, and I wrote the episode The Old Man in the Seat. So I actually started on the show. It was my first gig out here. I was an intern on season 1, way back at the dawn of time. And yeah, that was my first job in show business, and got to know Dan a little bit. I started a softball team that he played on at the animation studio, and that was kind of how we became pals. I was his coach. So yeah, I was there at the beginning before anybody knew what the show was going to become, and then was working as an assistant and getting to know some of the folks, and ended up, before I left, I went and worked for Harmon on Community season 5. I think I did some scratch audio in interdimensional cable, and ended up as the voice of the guy eating shit, Glenn. So that was me. Listen, that's still the most important contribution I'll ever have to the show.
How do you get an internship at Rick and Morty season 1?
A guy I knew had just started working on it, and I was a big fan of Harmon and Community. I'd only been out here from Atlanta for a couple years, and is honestly just dumb luck, and yeah.
What do you think he saw in you?
A good softball coach, and somebody who really believed in his strength at the plate. Um, and I had him bat and clean up, and it's if you want to make it as a writer, you've got to be good at sports. That's the takeaway.
And then suddenly here we are, season 4, and you're a writer.
Right.
Just like that.
Yeah, I mean, kind of the whole journey was I did that and stuck with Dan, and went and worked on Community, and then came back and was working at Starburns Industries with Harmon and development and everything. And then I had a show that I'd created that was a 1-hour show, the best kind of set in the world of professional wrestling that went. And so I went off and ran that and wrote that first season. And then that kind of went dark for a little bit. And that was right around the time that season 4 of Rick and Morty was coming back. And so I got to come back on board as a writer, which was really exciting.
Walk us through the genesis of this story.
It was an episode. It was an idea that they tried to crack before, I believe, and it was, listen, near and dear to everybody who's ever worked in a writer's room's heart. It's where in the building do you go to take a dump? And and I it's I even remember back in the Community days on the Paramount lot. Harmon had his secret spot and everything, the secret building, and we all had our secret spots. And so it's a pretty evergreen idea and shared experience that I feel like a lot of people, anybody who works anywhere, really has. And we just started really, saying, okay, let's do this year. And it quickly, what we got excited about was the chance to take such a silly kind of juvenile concept is where do you go to take your secret dumps, but build an incredibly kind of like almost like prestige drama level, just character journey around it. And especially it's the first time I believe that we're sending Rick off on a solo adventure by himself. So it was just a chance to, here we are in season 4, dig a little bit deeper into this guy and who he is, what makes him tick. But of course, against just the backdrop of where does he take a shit.
What's your experience with finding a private shitter during season 4?
I mean, ultimately successful. The problem is everybody, the one that you find, everybody else finds as well. I think in our case, it was, we were on the 2nd or 3rd floor, and there was one up on the 4th floor that you'd go to. I mean, very, and like Rick in this episode, if your sacred space had been desecrated, it was an issue. It really ruined your day. In the episode itself, when Rick goes down into the subterranean lair where the toilet control panel is and control center is, Dan actually wrote a page-long, almost just like manifest for the artists, but it was it felt like Dan's own religion on pooping and maybe how sacred that can be and everything. And it's just a testament to how that guy can take anything and make it brilliant and emotionally resonant.
What have you picked up from him? Things like that from writing on the show.
I mean, look, he's certainly my mentor, and I think with Dan, it really is kind of a relentless pursuit of perfection. It's never good enough, and I really admire that. But at the same time, he's incredibly collaborative. To be such an incredible writer, it doesn't matter. Even when I was a PA, if I had ideas, he would take those in and everything. So he's just always in search of the best idea. And just, there's just nobody better on the page than that guy.
Looking back at this episode, what are you Are you things that you're particularly proud of, things that stand out, things that you had to fight for?
I really am proud that we did a dramatic story. Yeah, I think that that's a thing that you only get to do a couple of times a season, and I think certainly season 4, 70 episode order, there, fans are wondering, okay, where are you going to take this thing? And the show has gone to those more emotional places before, and I think people always get excited about it. So I think it's just a whole new side of Rick. It's him reckoning with somebody, the most unlikely of equals and adversaries. And so that's fun, and the fact that we did that in a story about taking a shit is just that's the dream. And also the artists on this one did so much of the heavy lifting, and because the episode really hinges on, like, is this a special place? The gag could really fall flat if you don't feel a sense of wonder when you come to this place, especially in an episode where, or in a show where we've been to a million incredible places. It's like, how do you show the most sacred, the most incredible? And so those guys, since I've left, the whole team's been hard at work, just making it better. I'm sure whatever the final cut is will be even better than what I saw last. When Rick first arrives on, I think, on the toilet planet, we always talked about that being a short film, so to speak. So I really, and it was fun for me coming from just writing a 1 hour show, and it's I get to flex that muscle a little bit. And so, yeah, I tried to write it in as cinematic as possible for those guys. But again, they're so brilliant. You just want to give them the most basic sense and just let them run wild.
Do previous episodes sort of inform the direction that you go in? Are there references? Are there callbacks? Things that you feel like, are there guide rails that you feel like you have to adhere to?
I don't think so. Not in this episode. Second episode of the season, was all right. This is one where we want to break new ground. On the B story side, we've got more of a classic family adventure. Jerry's back in, living with the family and everything. So we're picking up kind of the pieces a little bit after the end of season 3 when he moved back in. I think for Rick, it's just, we've seen this guy evolve a little bit very slowly over the course of 3 seasons or so. So it's just trying to keep that small little bit of growth.
How do you feel writing for Jerry, going from Rick and Morty to writing about Jerry and his
man,
it's a tonal shift?
Jerry's the best. That's
other people have said
he's
that.
So
other
so
writers.
funny. He's such a classic, just dumbass dad character. And Chris Parnell, I was fortunate to get to direct some of the voice acting over the course of the season. And that guy, you just write anything and he's going to make it funny.
Do you sit in the voice records?
Yeah, a couple of times this season I did.
What's interesting and cool out there that you like? What artists? What shows? What do you watch? What's good to you?
Most recently, I love Righteous Gemstones. That's being from Georgia. They brought me on as the redneck writer. That's the role I'm proud to fill. I think I had Rick saying y'all every step of the way.
That went away.
And yeah, I don't know. I like Righteous Gemstones. I tell you, I love the MCU. That guy Loki, he should have his own show.
Yeah, if only.
Yeah.
You're growing up in Georgia. Growing up in Georgia,
yeah.
Did that inform this episode really?
Maybe. Literally, I just wrote every character saying y'all, I think, to annoy Dan, and was successful. But maybe a little bit. It's Rick going to the outdoors to kind of commune with nature and himself, and to take a dump, which, if you grew up in Georgia, you've probably done once or twice.
What's the writer's room like?
The writer's room, mean, when I was there, it was just a brilliant group of folks. I mean, just so talented. Mike McMahon was kind of running the room when we were there. He's since went off and he's doing Star Trek Lower Decks for CBS All Access and Solar Opposites for Hulu. But he was a great leader and somebody I learned a lot from. And, he'd been on the show since the beginning, and it was incredible to watch what a great creative surrogate he was for Dan and Justin. And then just so much talent. Jeff Loveness, who ended up writing he wrote like 5 episodes while he was there, is as good as it gets. Anne Lane is amazing. I think it was her idea. Props to her when we were really trying to figure out, okay, where does this episode go? It was Anne who pitched, well, what if there was somebody who used Rick's toilet from another planet? And that broke it open for us. She's great. Katie Delaney's brilliant. Dave Horwich, Sean Perlman, Ed Vicola, James Siciliano, May Harsetti. I mean, it's the whole team is just amazing.
Are you conscious of, as you're writing it, things that might appear with some permanence, things that will be either immortalized in toys and the canon? Does that sit in the back of your mind?
Yeah, I mean, I do this for the merch. That is, that's it for me. I mean, yeah, I think so. With a show like this now, God, I mean, that's coming in day one. All right, we got a 70 episode order. The show's a huge success. You know that it's something that people love, and so you want to give them more of that, but also take some risks and keep surprising people, because I think that's how it kind of started to become immortal in the first place.
How has the show evolved from the previous seasons?
I mean, I think that the show, I don't know. I think it's just evolved in that it was already such a risky show that took such crazy chances. It's in one of the first episodes, the characters take the places of their dead selves and bury their dead bodies in the backyard. And that, it's like from the get-go, you're like, oh wow, this show can end on a Mazzy Star needle drop like a Sopranos episode, and then it can also have a ball sack monster flying around. So I think that for a show that starts out, that right out the gate was that crazy, the fact that it's still innovating, still taking chances and everything is, I mean, I don't know. It's remarkable. It's a testament to Dan and Justin. And I think that, again, if you think of Rick as a guy who's like Don Draper, or like Tony Soprano, those were great shows about, damaged people who couldn't quite change, but over time at least became a little more aware of how they were broken. And so I see Rick and Morty doing a little bit of that every season, which is really cool. But if people end up with pictures of Rick's toilet in their bathrooms, that's yeah, I've done it.
All right, Michael Waldron. Thanks to Christina Loringer for editing this, and to Dave Bonowitz for his help. Special thanks to Steve Levy for organizing all of this, and thank you for listening. Subscribe to the Adult Swim Podcast wherever you get your podcasts. As always, we'd love to hear from you, adultswimpodcast@gmail.com.